For this skill, I had to prove the identity secant 2 theta is equal to secant squared theta divided by 1 minus tangent squared theta. In order to prove this identity, I had to prove that the left side was the same as the right side when fully simplified. I started by working on the left side. The first thing I did is I replaced secant 2 theta with 1 divided by cosine 2 theta because the two are reciprocals of each other. Next, using the identity cosine 2 theta is equal to cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta, I was able to replace the cosine 2 theta in the denominator. The left side of my identity ended up simplifying to 1 divided by cosine squared theta, 1 divided by cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta. So at this point, the left side of my identity was fully simplified, so now I had to manipulate the right side. The first thing I did was I replaced the secant squared theta with 1 divided by cosine squared theta because the two functions are reciprocals of each other. I then replaced the tangent squared theta with sine squared theta divided by cosine squared theta. The next step I took was getting the bottom fraction to be a single fraction. So I did this by changing the denominator by subtracting sine squared theta divided by cosine squared theta from the 1. In order to do this, I needed to have have the same denominator as the fraction. So in order to get that, I multiply 1 by cosine squared theta divided by cosine squared theta. So at this point, my denominator looked like cosine squared theta divided by cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta divided by cosine squared theta. After subtracting those two values, the right side of my identity looked like 1 divided by cosine squared theta divided by cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta divided by cosine squared theta. After this, I wanted to get rid of the fraction in my denominator. In order to do this, I flipped the fraction and multiplied it by the fraction in the numerator. So the setup was 1 divided by cosine squared theta times cosine squared theta divided by cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta. Just by looking at it, I knew that there was a cosine squared theta in the numerator and in the denominator, so that those two would cancel. At this point, the right side of my identity was fully simplified. Both sides of the identity ended up simplifying to 1 divided by cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta, and since they both end up simplifying to the same thing, this identity has been proven.